I've got a question that I want all of you to ponder. What's your relationship like with the word connections? Whose opinion do you value and look towards when you seek out guidance? When you have to make a big decision in life, is there someone you call for inspiration and paving your path to prosperity forward? My friends, that's a roundabout way of asking you, how much do you value mentorship in your life? It's estimated that 76% of Americans believe that mentorship is important, but only 37% of today's American public actually invests in finding and maintaining a relationship with a mentor. Meanwhile, according to my friends over at the Annie E. Casey Foundation, they found that 86% of children across the nation have at least one mentor within their school, neighborhood, or community, which provides them guidance and advice, according to the 2022 National Survey on Children's Health. For my friend Deborah Heiser, she's an applied developmental psychologist and TEDx speaker, consultant, and founder and CEO of the Mentor Project, which was created to shed light on the benefits of mentoring. The Mentor Project also argues that the mentors get just as much inspiration and fulfillment from their mentees once they form a reliable sense of connection between the two. Heiser's work has also been featured in the New York Times, the Seattle Times, the Dallas Times, and she also contributes to Thrive Global. Her research covers a wide range of broad topics, including topics relating to aging, depression, the identification of dementia, and frailty, just to name a few. And Heiser joined me this week to have a conversation about the impact and the importance of mentorship and the role it forms in creating leaders of today and setting an example for a new way forward. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. Deborah, if you're ready, I'll take a moment to welcome you to the program, and I'm super excited to learn how you help people get the mentorship edge, my friend. Great to see you, and thanks for a few minutes this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. No, Deborah, I know that your work centers around the power of mentorship and its impact on our personal growth across all stages of life, my friend. So I'm wondering if we can start our conversation by you telling me what makes you so fabulous and why you love what you do.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm an applied developmental psychologist, so I look at all the things we should expect in life that are good, rather than most psychologists who are clinical psychologists and look at all the things we don't want to face. That said, I'm the CEO and founder of the Mentor Project, and this is where we bring some of the top leaders and experts to mentor kids, I should say students, around the world for free. Last year, or just this year alone, which we're not even done with, we've had more than $2 million worth of mentorship hours given away for free. And I'm also the author of the Mentorship Edge, which is available for pre-order now. It's a book about mentorship and how we're all built to want to give back and to mentor.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm just curious to also ask you about the importance of mentorship in general and the role it plays in young people's lives because it's critical, isn't it?
You know, it's interesting. It's critical for young people, but it's critical at all of our ages. We all need mentorship, no matter how old we are. And, once we hit midlife, we have a real innate desire, just like every other developmental milestone, to want to give back. And mentoring is one way we do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that you believe that mentorship plays a big role in sort of intergenerational and organizational success for individual leaders and organizations. So I'm wondering if we can dive into that this morning.
I'd love to.
Yeah, so I'm curious to ask you about how the role of mentorships can affect the health of an organization. What are your thoughts there?
Well, if you have an organization that has really good mentorship in that organization, you're going to see explosive impact. So, if I give you an example, there are plenty of organizations who really thrive on what I call lateral mentorship, where we seek mentorship from colleagues inside or outside of the workplace. When we see that, we see a lot more creativity. So Bell Labs, which is an organization in the United States, that had so many Nobel laureates and so many people who had patents. And that was because they had a real effort put forward to make sure that people worked together and that they helped each other through mentoring. So it wasn't an explicit requirement, but in order to get something done, you can never do it alone. You really do need the help of others. And by fostering that in an organization, you're going to see more creativity, people getting along better, and you're going to see the organization thrive.
Yeah, absolutely. You talk about thriving organizations. You know, Deborah, we're having this conversation this morning right in the middle of National Disability Employment Awareness Month. And I, outside of hosting this broadcast, talk to organizations about the importance of hiring folks with disabilities. And it's important to me because I was born with one. So I wanted to ask you about the importance of sort of diversification in the workforce and the importance that we mentor folks with disabilities within the workforce because, you know, opportunities may not always be readily available for people who look like me who have a disability. So I'm wondering your thoughts on the importance of this month and why it's important to mentor folks with disabilities within the workforce specifically.
Well, I think you bring up a great point, and this should be celebrated and talked about not just during this month, but every month. I think that if I were to look at this in terms of how companies could and should work with regard to everyone, is that everyone should be mentoring everyone. We all learn from and we know that people with disabilities in reading and people who have ADHD, they are often very successful CEOs who are mentoring others. I know that with regard to disability, that is not something that impacts a person's ability to be creative or to work. And people need to be able to see that we're able to be mentored by people who have a variety of disabilities, and we should be mentoring them as well. I really truly believe in lateral mentorship, which is mentoring people side to side. It's different from peer mentorship. It's where you're relying on people who you may know within the workplace, outside the workplace, but it's utilizing everyone you know around you who may be able to help you solve a problem. And so within a workplace that may be hierarchical, I think that by employing additional lateral mentoring is very helpful to even get hierarchical mentoring, which is, someone above you is mentoring you to get to the next level. Lateral mentoring, if you add that to it, even enhances that. And every company should be doing this. Every person should be doing this, because it not only helps you with your personal development, but it does help with work development.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to turn to your book now called The Mentorship Edge, and I'm curious why you decided to write it, and some lessons that you hope that people get out of reading the book, my friend. What are some key takeaways you're hoping people get from the book?
I think that some of the key takeaways are that most people think of mentorship as a mentee who is looking for help, and the mentor is never someone that's pictured. It's a nameless, faceless individual that we're looking to pull from. Mentorship is where we're giving. It's not a pulling from somebody. It is a relationship where both parties are engaged and have a goal to accomplish with an individual. And so it isn't simply a reciprocity between two people. It's not a give and take. It's not being generous. It's being generative, where one person, the mentor, is giving a little bit of themselves to somebody else. And that other person has to be willing to take that information and live with that information. So in the book, I give a ton of different examples about how mentorship really works, how if you just leave one little ingredient out of it, it might look like mentorship, but it's not. I differentiate between networking, advising, any kind of sponsorship, all of the things that we often mistake in coaching for mentorship. So some of the examples I give are people like Charlie Camarda. He is an astronaut, and he was on the mission that followed the Columbia disaster, where everyone perished upon impact coming back into the Earth's atmosphere. So Charlie had waited his whole life. Just imagine you're someone who always wanted to be an astronaut. You get out into space, and he's up there, and he finds out that his mission may have the same problem that Columbia had. So what did he do? He's up in space. He calls his friend, who's a mentor to him. He didn't call his boss. He didn't call anybody in the workplace. He called his friend and said, "Am I going to survive this?" And his friend said, "You're going to need to do a spacewalk in order to survive this mission, to repair the tiny little tile that's loose." So they did that. They contacted NASA. They did that, and they returned home safely. So that was a lateral mentor. And that's an example of how mentors can even save lives. We need to trust the person that we are talking to. We need to be able to be vulnerable with the person that we're talking to. So Charlie reached out to somebody he trusted, and he knew that if he said, "Hey, am I going to live? How much time do we have?" Mentorship is that big. Another example in the workplace is of, a hierarchical one, is Irene, who was at a large corporation, and she went in and she moved from a very different work environment to a new work environment. And she had absolutely no idea how to navigate in this large corporate environment. So someone was giving a talk. It was somebody a couple of levels above her who she would never want to approach. She felt so, so distant from this person. But the person on the stage at the talk said, "I would love to be able to mentor people." So Irene contacted me and she said, "What do I do?" And I said, "Email her. Tell her you heard her say that she'd like to mentor people." She did. And the person immediately wrote back and said, "Yes, I will mentor you." They had a goal. Irene had to get over feeling vulnerable. She had to put her trust into this person. And the other person needed to trust that Irene was going to take her information and work with it. There's still connected today, several years later. It worked. It was great. Irene remained there and did a great job. So these are the ways in which we mentor that we often don't think about. And in the book, I highlight a lot of different examples of how we engage in mentorship that looks very different from what we often think it might look like.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Deborah, I'm also curious to ask you about leadership and the role mentorship plays in the development of our leaders. I always say that we can't have a level of expectations without creating one of our own. But when we talk about mentorship in relation to leadership, I think there's a link between effective leaders and their mentors. Would you agree with that?
Oh, 100%. People who get mentored understand that you're not living in a silo and you're not working in a silo. People who don't ask for help and who don't give help don't get far. They don't get far in their personal life and they don't get far in the work life. So absolutely, leaders have to understand that they need to be able to show their vulnerability to get help from others. And that might be help from somebody below you, lateral to you. If you're a leader, it might be that you don't have somebody above you that you can look to. So you need to find your mentorship from somewhere else, because we all need mentorship. But you also have to really be aware that you need to be able to be mentoring those below you, because otherwise your vision will never get anywhere. So our vision is often tied to the goal of mentorship.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned earlier that you're the CEO and founder of the Mentorship Project, and I know you're also an adjunct professor as well. And I'm curious about, when you look at the role that you personally have as the leader in your own space, how important is it for you to really set the example for others to follow? I'm curious to get your answer there.
Well, at the Mentor Project, it was formed with, I consider myself like a bus driver of the organization, that I need to get my directions and I need to understand the goal and the path of where we're going, not from myself. I'm a psychologist running this organization. I am not an entrepreneur by nature. I am not a STEM person. I don't have all the expertise that all the mentors have. What I need to do is, get guidance from everyone so that I can drive the bus effectively. And so that's really the way I look at it. I'm always, asking people, hey, do you have some advice for how we can move this forward? I'm willing to look at this as a group process as opposed to me standing up and dictating information. In terms of a classroom, I really encourage students to reach out to fellow students, to reach out to me, to reach out to other places where they can get mentorship, because most students feel like they're alone and that they have to just go to their notes or to their book and get all the answers. And really, being a college student should be the time when you're looking to gather as many resources that you can have for the rest of your life. And part of that is mentors. You shouldn't just be looking for one. You should be looking for many, because you never know who might open a door for you later, or what a mentor might be able to expose you to that will send you down a new path that you hadn't considered before.
Yeah, and Deborah, I want to talk also about the psychology of midlife, because I know you also work with people in this space as well. And as we age, certain feelings and emotions come to the surface. So I'm curious, how do you help people really embrace the concept of aging? And I'm curious also if you believe that you can adopt the idea with age and midlife comes experience. So I'm curious, how can we help people really embrace the idea of entering midlife? What are your thoughts there?
I think midlife is the time that we really come into our own. The one thing I discovered as an aging researcher, I had been focused on depression, frailty, Alzheimer's, all the things no one wants to experience when they get older. And I ended up deciding to switch and look at everything that we have to look forward to. And most of us think of aging as, a physical journey, and our life is not a physical journey. If you were to look at a trajectory that most of us are exposed to and told to follow, is one where we have a steep incline with physical abilities and then a slow, steady decline. And everyone leaves out the emotion that we all experience. And every single person I talk to, we all start at the same point, and our emotion only goes up. It gets better. We get happier as we get older. So just at midlife is the point where we have emotionally figured out who we are, who the people are that we like the most. We become experts in things. And so we start to really feel pretty good about ourselves. And midlife is the point where we want to start taking all that we know and sharing it with others. It feels good to share. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask you about, just adding on that, what traits do you think make a good leader? And when you look at midlife and embracing a leadership role, how do you think it's interconnected?
Midlife and a leadership role here's one of the things that I really, really feel strongly about. I feel like we're wasting our most precious natural resources. And those resources are people. It's our brains, it's our values, it's our emotions, it's everything that we have accumulated and can offer. Once people get to midlife, they are often, not long after that, retiring. And we close the door on all that knowledge. It's like closing the door on a library, and that information simply gets lost. So midlife is a time where we should, in companies, really be saying, who are our experts? Who are the people who are there? Most of them are midlife and older who are the experts, and they're not being valued. They're being asked to leave. That's usually the time when people get, downsized, when they get laid off, when they're asked to retire early. And this is the time that we're sending those people who hold the key to the most information to the company out the door. So I do think that when we're talking about leadership and we're talking about companies, we should be retaining our experts, and at the very least, saying, before you leave for retirement, how many people can you pass your information on to so that wheel doesn't have to get reinvented over and over and over again?
And it's a faster way to close the labor gap, right? The trouble that we're having in filling vacant positions can be sort of mitigated by passing on knowledge to the next generation. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. And Deborah, I'm curious to ask you, how do you think the role of a mentor can help us sort of heal the societal divisions that we're sort of experiencing today? What do you think the role of mentorship can play in sort of healing societal divisions and creating what I call more bridges of unity? Because, Deborah, one of the reasons I wanted to start this podcast is because I looked at the world 4.5 years ago and I said, there has to be more that brings us together than tears us apart. So I'm curious, what do you think the role of mentorship plays in sort of healing the societal divisions of today? What are your thoughts there?
Well, I think you're 100% correct. It's all about our connections. If you're mentoring, you're connected with somebody, and you don't care what their political beliefs are. You don't care about anything else. You're connected to that person. Within the Mentor Project, people are all different backgrounds, all different political, affiliated with different political sides. when you are working to solve a problem, you don't care about any of that. You're connecting person to person, value to value, and all of that extra stuff falls to the side. So when you have a friend and you don't see eye to eye on 100% of the things, you don't say, my friendship's over with you. When we connect, it comes at a very deep level. And so, like what you're doing with this podcast, what other people are doing and the ways that they mentor, you're connecting with people. And that is really incredibly deep. And that's really the main part of mentorship is connection. So the more we can connect people, the less division we're going to have.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talk about the connection of people, and nonprofits play a big role in doing that. And I know that you've worked also in the nonprofit space. So I'm curious to ask you about the role nonprofits play in sort of advancing society forward and closing the gap of inequity. What are your thoughts there?
I really think that mentorship does close those gaps because we're connecting people. One of the biggest problems that we have, and one of the ways that we saw two different things happen during, COVID, you started this, 4 years ago. We started the Mentor Project 5 years ago, and we thought we started it 6 months before COVID hit. And we thought we were going to be doomed because we weren't able to go into classrooms in person. But a whole world opened up to us because now we're online and we're able to not only go in person places, but to see people virtually. We are connecting people around the world, and that makes the world not only a smaller place, but a more connected place. When you personally know somebody, you get to learn more about different cultures. You get to learn about the way that that person thinks and feels. And it makes the world feel like a smaller, safer, more wonderful place. The same thing happens in the workplace when we start to get to know people better also.
Yeah, absolutely. And Deborah, tell me, how do you think mentorship and confidence are interconnected? What are your thoughts there?
Look, just like the story with Charlie or the story about Irene, those people felt more confident after talking to a mentor. Anytime you seek the advice of somebody, they're usually instilling confidence in you. They're not taking it away. A mentor is only there for positive. And so if you have a mentor, you're going to gain confidence in things you may not have even known that you were not confident about. We usually take these for granted. If you have a friend who helps you out with things, if you have a family member who helps you out with things, if you help people out with things, you often don't say to yourself, oh, I'm mentoring. But if we start to now think more about our connections and how we offer help and how that makes us feel so good when we help somebody solve a problem or offer them advice that's useful to them or vice versa, we start to do it more and it's more intentional, and then it gets even deeper and even better.
Yeah, absolutely. And Deborah, tell me, what qualities do you think makes a good mentor? And if someone watching or listening to this wants to take on a mentorship role, what qualities or advice would you advise them to have, and what makes a good mentor in your view?
Look, a lot of people say, here, just have this list of qualities and you're going to be a fantastic mentor. Mentorship is like friendship. I can't say to you, go do these 5 things and you'll be friends with people. You like people or you don't, right? There are people that you'll meet, you'll say, I have an immediate connection with that person. You feel amazing around them. What we should be doing is being open to relationships with people. And a mentor should be open to that, open to being there for people to help them and to guide them. The first thing I would tell somebody, to be a good mentor, you have to be looking for somebody who's going to be a vessel for your information. And you're not just tossing your information away for free. You're looking for somebody to have a connection with so that you can feel like they are accepting your information and that they're going to carry it on forward and do something positive with it. Most mentors don't think of that. They don't know that their role is that big. I have a quick example of somebody who really does get that. And he's a Nobel Prize winner. His name is Bob Lefkowitz. and he created a mentor, a legacy tree. And it's in the book. I show a picture of it and I talk about it. But what he did was he wanted to know, gee, how was it that I was mentored to become a Nobel Prize winner? And how do I fit in this sort of tree that looks like an Ancestry.com tree? And so he plotted it all out and he published it, and he went to a conference. And somebody came up to him and said, I'm 6 degrees Lefkowitz. And he said, what do you mean? And he said, well, 5 people are between you and me, and I'm doing the work that you started. So Bob said, tell me about your work. And he started to tell him about the work. And Bob could hear all of his words, his thinking, and his work in this person who was 6 degrees away from him. So when, as mentors, our goal needs to be that we are looking at somebody as taking our information and that they're going to move it forward into the world. They're going to be generative with it. Beyond that, it's all about interconnection and how we feel about people, and just making sure that we're not trying to get something out of it from the mentee.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I know that you also work with people who are planning or thinking about retirement. And I'm curious to ask you about, from a psychology perspective, when someone enters that phase of their life, how important is it for them to really take stock of what they've done during their professional career, but also knowing that there's a new opportunity for mentorship? So how, in your view, from a personal and psychological perspective, can people successfully prepare for retirement? What are your thoughts there?
One of the things that I suggest to people who are getting ready to retire is to find out what your identity is outside of work. So most people, they use their business card as their identity card. I'm a teacher, I'm a police officer, or I'm a CEO, or I'm, whatever it is. And their outside work, they don't feel as connected to. So I ask people to look at what else makes up who you are. And another part of that is to say, what information do you want people to remember you by as you exit your career? And so that can help to trigger people to say, oh, you know what? I want to make sure that people knew that I did this, XYZ. I know this, XYZ. And the only way you can get that out is by, mentoring other people and telling them how to do that, giving them the information for what they do. It leaves a legacy for you at work. So, and it also creates a bandwidth for you as you exit to do something that you really want to do and to identify what that is.
Yeah, and Deborah, I'm going to share just a little bit about myself. So one of the sayings that I live my life by is that inclusion is the gateway to independence, and everyone's portrait of success is different. Now, Deborah, when I was 9 years old, I found out that I would never be able to walk because of this severity of my cerebral palsy, and I was born 3 months premature. And I always tell people, because one of the questions I'm always asked is, why are you so internally positive? And I always say there's no 50% off policy when you have a disability. So you might as well make the best of the lot that you have. So I'm curious to ask you about eliminating barriers to success, because I think that we're all given unique skills and abilities to sort of transform the world for good and helping to solve problems. So I'm curious, how do you think we can look at our own skills and abilities to make a measurable difference? What are your thoughts there?
Well, I love how you talked about it, talked about your life. Exactly what you said is how we all feel. We feel emotional. When somebody says, what do you want for your child when they grow up? People say, I want them to be happy. They don't say, I want them to run fast. Nobody says that. What we do is we put a premium on physicality, and what I've seen in the latter half of life is that nobody cares about that as much. I can talk to somebody who is in a wheelchair and has limited lung capacity, and they will say, I'm happy. And people will say, why? How can that be? But if we all look at it, none of us sits around and gets our joy from physicality as much as we do from the emotional part. So he says, I can read, I can write, I'm productive, I can see my grandchildren, I can get joy in life. So if we are able to look at the emotional sides of our lives, what is it that we really care about emotionally? That is what is going to carry us through. That carries us through in our personal life and in our work life. So, if we can really grasp onto that component, the emotional component, has been left out. And that's why aging is scary to so many people, because they see it as a physical loss. So if we see that there's never a loss, that we always have our emotional side, we will see people more equally and everything will be more inclusive. That is my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Deborah, my last question for you this morning is this. If I gave you an executive producer and a director and a movie crew to make a movie about your life, what do you think are the principles of your legacy and the work that you've done that you would want to be shown in this movie? And what do you think the movie title to your life would be, my friend?
Connections. It would be just a story of all the connections from the beginning of my life through till the end of my life, or until now, if the movie were happening now, because that's what matters most to me. When I'm excited, the first person I want to call is one of my close connections. When I'm upset, the first thing I want to do is call one of my connections, people I'm connected to. If I want to start something new, I call my connections. Everyone who is a connection is somebody who's changed my life, who's somebody that I want to share my life with. And so I think that would be my story.
Yeah, absolutely. And who would get the starring role in the movie? Who would play you, my friend?
Ooh, who would play me? Oh, I don't know. Let's see. I haven't even thought of anything like that. So I'd be willing to take suggestions from somebody. Who would be like a really cool star? I honestly don't know. I'd have to pick somebody in midlife.
Can I give you a suggestion?
Yeah.
How about Meryl Streep? We'll just give her some blonde hair and some glasses, and we'll make her into Deborah. How about that?
I'll take it. I'll take it.
Absolutely. And tell me, Deborah, if people want to get connected with you, my friend, or the Mentorship Project, or you personally, what's the best way they can do that?
So check out thementorproject.org. Check out mentorproject.org. It's called the Mentor Project. You can reach me there. You can reach me at my website, which is deborahheiser.com. You can find my writing on Midlife on Psychology Today. Just look up my name, Deborah Heiser. And you can also reach me through the book, which is The Mentorship Edge. I think you can probably reach me through Amazon or any of those areas.
Absolutely. Well, Deborah, I have to tell you, I'm smarter and more wiser for having this conversation. I want to thank you for the work that you do in leadership development and mentorship, and for joining me today to engage in conversation. It's most appreciated.
I really appreciate you, and thank you for mentoring me today. I learned a lot from you.